The unexpected discovery. The holographic display cast a soft blue glow across Dr. Sarah Chen's face as she studied the molecular structure rotating before her. The lab's climate control hummed quietly in the background, maintaining the precise temperature needed for her experiments. After 15 years of research into interspecies communication, she might have finally cracked it. "Computer, run simulation beta 7 again," she commanded, her eyes never leaving the display. The molecule spun faster, splitting apart to reveal its inner workings. Basic pheromones were nothing new. Insects had been using them for millions of years. But this was different. This compound could potentially bridge the gap between any two species with compatible nervous systems. A gentle chime interrupted her concentration. Dr. Chen, the AI assistant, announced, "Director Matthews is requesting entry." Sarah straightened her lab coat. "Let him in." The door slid open with a soft hiss, revealing the tall figure of the Global Science Initiative's director. His usually stern expression carried an unusual hint of excitement. "Dr. Chen," Matthews strode in, tablet in hand, "I just reviewed your latest report. Is it true? Have you actually created a universal translator for biochemical signals?" Sarah gestured to the hologram. "In theory, yes. The compound acts as a bridge between different nervous systems, allowing for the interpretation of emotional and basic communicative signals across species. It's not exactly translation, more like creating a shared wavelength of understanding." Matthews circled the display, his eyes gleaming. The implications for xenobiology are staggering, especially now that we've confirmed the signal from Kepler 186f. Sarah's heart skipped a beat. The signal had been all over the news, the first confirmed signs of intelligent life from an exoplanet. "Director, my research isn't ready for practical application. We've only tested it with Earth species, and even then." "The Council has already approved an expedition," Matthews cut in. "We need your compound, Dr. Chen. This could be humanity's first contact with an alien civilization. We can't risk misunderstandings." Sarah's mind raced through all the possible complications. The compound was stable, yes, but its effects varied significantly between species. In some cases, it enhanced emotional reception too much, creating overwhelming empathic connections. "Give me 3 months," she countered. "I need to run more trials, establish safety protocols." "You have 2 weeks," Matthews stated firmly. "Humanity can't afford to wait. The Chinese and European space agencies are already preparing their own missions. We need to be first, Dr. Chen, for the right reasons." Sarah sank into her chair, her eyes drawn back to the rotating molecule. 2 weeks to perfect something that could determine the course of human-alien relations. No pressure. "I'll need unlimited lab access," she said finally, "and my pick of the support staff." Matthews nodded. "Done. Whatever you need, just make it work." After he left, Sarah remained staring at the hologram, its blue light now seeming more ominous than comforting. She pulled up the latest test results on her tablet, scrolling through pages of data. The compound was safe for humans. She'd tested it on herself numerous times. But its effects on alien biology, that was the million-dollar question. "Computer, start new research log," she commanded. "Project designation, first contact. Begin compilation of all cross-species trial data, focusing on nervous system variations and response patterns." As the AI began its work, Sarah walked to the lab's window, looking out at the sprawling research complex below. Somewhere out there, across unimaginable distances, another civilization was waiting. She just hoped her creation would build bridges rather than barriers. Little did she know, her compound would soon face a test far beyond anything she could have imagined. First contact gone wrong. The descent pod shuddered as it pierced the atmosphere of Kepler 186f. Inside, Sarah clutched her harness, watching through the reinforced viewport as the alien world grew larger. The planet's twin moons cast a violet glow across clouds that shimmered with bioluminescent particles. Final approach, announced Captain Rivera from the pilot's seat. Atmospheric composition matches probe data. Oxygen-nitrogen mix, slightly higher oxygen content than Earth. We should be able to breathe just fine. Dr. Marcus, the team's xenobiologist, tapped his tablet excitedly. Bio readings are off the charts. This isn't just a living world, it's thriving. The evolutionary possibilities. Sarah nodded, but her attention was focused on the small case secured to her suit. Inside were carefully measured doses of her pheromone compound, now designated XC117. 2 weeks of round-the-clock work had refined it, but she still wasn't entirely confident about its effects. The pod's landing gear deployed with a mechanical whine as they descended through a gap in the canopy. Massive trees, their trunks glowing with strips of bioluminescent fungi, stretched hundreds of meters into the sky. The ground below was a maze of root systems and crystalline formations that seemed to pulse with inner light. Touchdown in 3, 2, 1. Rivera eased the pod onto a relatively clear patch of ground. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to humanity's first extrasolar colony. Sarah's hands trembled slightly as she ran through the safety checks on her suit. The compound had been integrated into their environmental systems, a low-dose constant exposure that should help them detect and interpret any chemical signals from native life forms. Remember, she briefed the team one last time, if you experience any unusual sensations, heightened emotions, unexplained empathic responses, report it immediately. We're here to study and observe, nothing more. The pod's hatch opened with a hiss of equalizing pressure. The air that rushed in carried scents unlike anything on Earth, sweet and metallic at the same time, with undertones that made Sarah's head swim slightly. The compound was already at work, her enhanced senses picking up chemical signatures that her normal biology would have missed. Dr. Marcus stepped out first, his sample collector already whirring. Incredible, he breathed. The soil composition, these crystals, they're not just geological formations, there's some kind of biological structure. Sarah followed him out, her boots crunching on what looked like grass, but felt more like fine crystal filaments. The gravity was slightly lower than Earth's, making each step feel unnaturally light. She activated her suit's recording systems, knowing that every moment needed to be documented. A sound like wind chimes drifted through the trees, but there was no breeze. The crystalline structures around them vibrated in response, creating harmonics that Sarah could feel in her bones. The compound in her system translated the sensations into something her brain could process. These weren't random sounds. They were patterns, communication. "Captain," she called out, "I'm picking up." Her warning was cut short by a flash of movement in the canopy above. Something large descended with liquid grace, landing between the team members. Sarah's enhanced senses went into overdrive as her body processed a flood of chemical signals. The creature, no, the being, stood nearly 3 meters tall. Its crystalline exoskeleton caught the light from the moons, refracting it in mesmerizing patterns. But it was the eyes that held Sarah's attention, multifaceted like an insect's, but with an intelligence that was unmistakably sentient. More figures emerged from the forest, surrounding the team. Their exoskeletons hummed in harmony with the crystal formations in the ground, creating a symphony of chemical and auditory signals that overwhelmed Sarah's enhanced senses. "Nobody move," Rivera ordered, his hand instinctively moving toward his sidearm. "Dr. Chen, can you communicate with them?" Sarah forced herself to remain still, fighting the vertigo induced by the flood of alien signals. The compound was working too well. She could feel the creature's curiosity, their caution, and underneath it all, something else. Fear, no, hunger. They're not just communicating, she realized with growing horror. They're coordinating. "Captain, we need tow." The first attack came from above, a crystalline net that shattered into fragments of living crystal upon impact. Where the shards touched skin, they began to grow, forming bonds with the suit material. The team's screams were lost in the harmonic resonance that filled the air. Sarah reached for the emergency purge on her suit's compound delivery system, but her movements were already slowing as the crystal began to spread. The last thing she saw before losing consciousness was the leader of the creatures approaching her, its exoskeleton now pulsing with patterns that her compound-enhanced mind translated all too clearly. They weren't just hungry for food. They were hungry for knowledge, for understanding, for everything that made humans human. And Sarah's compound had just given them the perfect tool to satisfy that hunger. The trial of understanding. Sarah regained consciousness to the sound of crystalline harmonics. Her mind, still enhanced by XC117, translated the vibrations into a cascade of information that threatened to overwhelm her. She was lying on something smooth and cool, surrounded by walls that seemed to pulse with living light. As her vision cleared, she realized she wasn't alone. The crystalline beings moved around her, their exoskeletons shifting through complex patterns of light and sound. Through the compound's effects, she began to understand fragments of their communication. The soft one awakens, the patterns translated in her mind. The bridge maker. Sarah tried to move, discovering her limbs were held in place by growing crystal formations. They hadn't spread past her suit, but the suit itself was now integrated into the crystal structure. Captain Rivera and Dr. Marcus were nowhere to be seen. The largest of the creatures approached, its faceted eyes refracting the ambient light. "You have brought us a gift," it communicated through a combination of harmonic resonance and chemical signals. "The bridge between minds, but you do not understand its true purpose." "Where is my team?" Sarah managed to ask, her voice hoarse. The crystal beings tilted their heads in perfect synchronization, the movement creating ripples of light through their exoskeletons. "The others are being studied," came the response. "Their patterns are interesting. But you, Bridgemaker, you are different. You carry the key to evolution itself." Sarah's scientific mind raced despite her fear. The beings weren't just using her compound to communicate. They were analyzing it, understanding it on a molecular level. Their entire biology seemed based on crystalline structures that could grow, adapt, and transmit information. "I don't understand," she said, trying to buy time while she observed their behavior. "What do you mean by evolution?" The leader's exoskeleton pulsed with what Sarah's enhanced senses interpreted as something between amusement and hunger. "Your species is young. You see reality in segments, biology, chemistry, physics. We are the resonance. To us, all is one pattern, one song. Your compound, it allows us to absorb new patterns." Horror dawned as Sarah processed the implications. "You're not just studying us. You're trying to absorb our traits, our knowledge." Yes, the confirmation came through a complex harmony of signals. For millennia, we have evolved by incorporating the patterns of other species. But never have we encountered beings who could bridge the gap between patterns so completely. Your compound is the key to perfect absorption. Sarah's mind raced through possibilities. The compound was designed to facilitate understanding between species, but these beings were using it as a tool for biological assimilation. Her creation, intended to bridge gaps, had instead given them the means to potentially consume humanity's very essence. "Wait," she called out as several resonants approached with crystalline instruments. "You don't understand. The compound isn't stable in all conditions. It needs specific environmental parameters too." "We understand more than you think, Bridgemaker," the leader interrupted. "We have already begun modifying it. Soon, we will perfect the process. Your species' pattern will join the great symphony." Sarah closed her eyes, focusing on a flood of chemical and harmonic signals surrounding her. The compound was working better than she'd ever intended, giving her insights into the resonance biology and communication. And in those insights, she began to see a possibility. "You're right," she said carefully, opening her eyes to meet the leader's crystalline gaze. "I don't fully understand the compound's potential, but I understand something you don't." The leader leaned closer, its faceted eyes reflecting Sarah's determined expression. "And what is that, Bridgemaker?" The human pattern isn't just about biology or chemistry, it's about choice, free will, something that can't be absorbed or replicated. Sarah focused all her concentration on the compound flowing through her system, pushing its capabilities to the limit. "Let me show you." She began to hum, a simple melody that resonated with the crystalline structures around her. The resonance froze, their exoskeletons vibrating in response. Sarah didn't need to understand their biology completely. She just needed to create enough dissonance in their unified field to buy some time. This is impossible. The leader's patterns convey confusion and alarm. The bridge cannot be used to create discord. But Sarah knew better. Human ingenuity had always thrived in impossible situations. And as the crystals holding her began to resonate with her disrupting frequency, she realized she might have just found humanity's chance for survival. Breaking barriers. The crystalline chamber erupted into chaos as Sarah's disrupting frequency spread through the network of living crystal. The resonance moved in agitated patterns, their usual harmonious movements becoming erratic. Through her compound-enhanced senses, she could feel their unified field fragmenting into individual consciousness streams. "Stop this discord," the leader's patterns projected desperation. "You risk destroying the great symphony." Sarah continued humming, modulating her frequency to match the resonant patterns she'd observed. The crystals binding her began to vibrate at their natural frequency, developing hairline fractures. She had one chance to get this right. "Release my team," she demanded, briefly pausing her disruption, "or I'll show you just how much discord humans can create." Through the crystalline walls, she could sense other vibrations, familiar ones. Captain Rivera and Dr. Marcus were alive, their own compounds creating subtle disruptions in the resonance network. They weren't just test subjects. They were nodes of chaos in a system that required perfect harmony. The leader's exoskeleton flashed with patterns of confusion and growing understanding. "Your species, you thrive on discord. This is not possible. All patterns must contribute to the symphony." "That's where you're wrong," Sarah explained, maintaining the destabilizing frequency at a lower level. "Human advancement comes from challenging patterns, breaking them, and creating new ones. We don't just adapt, we revolutionize." A new vibration rippled through the chamber as younger resonants entered. Their patterns were different, more curious, less rigid. Sarah's enhanced senses picked up their chemical signatures. They were fascinated by the discord, not repelled by it. "The young ones feel it too," she pressed her advantage. "Your society needs change, needs variation. Perfect harmony leads to stagnation." The leader's crystalline form shifted, creating complex interference patterns in the chamber's light. "Our way has preserved our species for millennia. We absorb beneficial patterns to strengthen the symphony." "But you've stopped growing," Sarah countered. "When was the last time your species truly created something new? Something that wasn't absorbed from others?" The question sent ripples of disturbance through the assembled resonance. The younger one's patterns became more pronounced, their chemical signatures indicating agreement. Through the compound's translation, Sarah sensed an ancient debate resurging: evolution versus stasis, change versus preservation. Suddenly, the crystals restraining her shattered. Sarah stumbled forward, caught by the surprisingly gentle grip of a younger resonant. Its patterns conveyed support and curiosity. "The bridge maker speaks truth," it communicated to the leader. "We have forgotten how to create our own songs." The chamber filled with harmonic debate as more young resonants added their voices to the discord. Sarah took advantage of the confusion to establish contact with her team through their linked compound systems. "Captain, Dr. Marcus, status report," she subvocalized, knowing the compound would carry her signals through the crystal network. Alive and unharmed, Rivera's response came through clearly. "The crystals are weakening. Whatever you're doing, keep it up." "Fascinating adaptation of the compound's properties," Dr. Chen. Marcus added, his scientific curiosity evident even in crisis. "They're not just communicating through it, They're using it to modify their own biological structures. The leader's voice cut through the chaos, its patterns now showing signs of adaptation. Perhaps we have been too rigid in our understanding of evolution. Bridgemaker, you offer a pattern we have not encountered before, controlled discord as a means of growth. Sarah stood straighter, her mind racing with possibilities. Let my team go, and I'll show you something even more valuable than absorption. I'll teach you how humans create new patterns through collaboration. The chamber resonated with new frequencies as the leader processed her offer. The younger resonants gathered closer, their patterns expressing eager anticipation. Even the older ones showed signs of curiosity breaking through their crystalline rigidity. Your pattern is strange, the leader finally communicated, but it contains wisdom we had forgotten. Release the others. Let us see what new harmonies can emerge from controlled discord. As the crystals throughout the complex began to reconfigure, releasing her teammates, Sarah felt a mix of relief and excitement. Her compound had worked exactly as intended, just not in the way anyone had expected. Instead of simply bridging communication, it had forced both species to confront their assumptions about evolution and adaptation. Captain Rivera and Dr. Marcus joined her, their suits still partially integrated with crystal formations. The compound flowing through their systems allowed them to sense the massive shift taking place in resonant society, a transformation from rigid harmony to dynamic evolution. Dr. Chen, Rivera spoke quietly. Are we really going to teach an advanced alien species how to be more like humans? Sarah watched as young resonants began experimenting with new crystalline formations, creating discordant but beautiful patterns. No, Captain, we're going to learn from each other, and maybe, just maybe, create something entirely new. Crisis and innovation. The following days brought unprecedented changes to both human and resonant understanding. Sarah and her team worked alongside the crystalline beings in a vast chamber that served as both laboratory and cultural exchange center. The walls pulsed with new harmonies, a blend of traditional resonant patterns and experimental human frequencies. But their progress was suddenly interrupted by a vibration that shook the entire complex. The crystalline structures darkened, their usual luminescence dimming as an alien alarm resonance spread through the network. What's happening? Sarah asked the young resonant she'd come to know as Echo, whose patterns showed clear signs of distress. The deep crystals are destabilizing, Echo's patterns translated through the compound. The discord. Our experiments have awakened something ancient. Dr. Marcus's instruments began displaying alarming readings. Massive seismic activity beneath us. The entire crystalline bedrock is becoming unstable. The leader of the resonance entered the chamber, its exoskeleton pulsing with urgent patterns. The great foundation crystals of anchor our civilization are fracturing. The new harmonies we've created have disturbed their resonance. Sarah's enhanced senses detected the truth in the crystalline vibrations. Their attempts to evolve resonant society had unknowingly triggered a chain reaction in the planet's unique geology. The very crystals that allowed their civilization to exist were beginning to collapse. Show me your geological data, she demanded. Everything you have about the foundation crystals. The chamber's walls transformed into a three-dimensional map of the planet's crystalline structure. Massive crystal formations extended kilometers deep, forming a network that regulated the planet's tectonic activity. Now that network was showing signs of catastrophic failure. The original harmonies maintained stability, the leader explained, its patterns heavy with concern. Our experiments with discord have created interference patterns we cannot control. Captain Rivera studied the map intently. These formations, they're not just geological structures, are they? They're like a planetary nervous system. Correct, Echo confirmed. They regulate temperature, maintain atmospheric composition, support all life on our world. If they fail, the planet dies, Sarah finished, her mind racing through possibilities. The compound was allowing her to understand the crystal networks in ways she never could have without it. But maybe that's also the solution. She turned to Dr. Marcus. The compound doesn't just allow communication, it creates adaptive resonance between different biological systems. What if we could use it to stabilize the crystal network? Impossible. The leader's patterns showed skepticism. The network is too vast, too complex. Not if we work together, Sarah insisted. Your people understand crystal harmonics. We understand adaptive systems. Combined. A stronger tremor shook the complex, sending cascades of crystal shards falling from the ceiling. They had minutes, maybe hours, before the destabilization became irreversible. We'll need to modify the compound, Sarah continued, her voice urgent. Create a version that can interface with the crystal network directly. Echo, can you young ones help us understand the deep crystal frequencies? Echo's patterns brightened. Yes, but the modification must be perfect. One wrong resonance could shatter everything. Then we'll have to trust each other completely, Sarah said, meeting the faceted eyes of both Resonance and her fellow humans. No more barriers, no more holding back. Full integration of our knowledge. The next hours were a blur of intense cooperation. Human scientific methodology merged with resonant harmonic understanding. Sarah's team worked to modify the compound, while young Resonance taught them the sacred frequencies of their world. The leader, seeing no alternative, shared ancient knowledge that had been kept secret for generations. As the planet's crystal core approached critical instability, they were ready to attempt their desperate solution. Sarah stood before a massive crystal formation, her suit now modified to channel the new compound directly into the network. The compound will connect your consciousness directly to the crystal matrix, Echo warned. No human has ever experienced such deep integration. The strain could be fatal. Sarah managed a grim smile. Better than watching a whole world die. Besides, humans are adaptable. That's kind of our thing. She nodded to Dr. Marcus, who initiated the injection sequence. The modified compound flowed into her system, and suddenly Sarah's consciousness expanded beyond anything she'd ever imagined. She could feel the planet's crystalline heartbeat, the complex harmonies that kept everything in balance. And she could feel the growing discord, the destructive interference patterns threatening to tear it all apart. A new dawn. Sarah's consciousness floated in an ocean of crystalline resonance. Through the modified compound, she could sense every vibration, every harmonic pattern that made up the planet's living network. The discord was spreading rapidly, threatening to shatter the delicate balance that had existed for millennia. Guide me, she projected her thoughts through the network, feeling the presence of both Echo and the resonant leader joining her consciousness. Show me the original harmony. Their combined awareness flowed through the crystal matrices, diving deeper into the planet's core. Here, Sarah discovered something extraordinary. The foundation crystals weren't just regulatory systems. They were memory structures, holding the accumulated knowledge of countless generations. There, the leader's patterns guided her. The prime resonance, the first song. Sarah perceived it, a perfect harmonic pattern that had maintained stability for eons. But it was rigid, unchanging. That was the problem. The planet itself needed to evolve. Not restore, she communicated to her allies. Transform. Like your society, these crystals need to learn to adapt. Through their shared connection, Sarah began to weave a new pattern. She drew upon everything she had learned about human adaptability, resonant harmony, and the compound's ability to bridge seemingly incompatible systems. The young resonance joined their consciousness to hers, adding their understanding of controlled discord. Captain Rivera's voice reached her through the compound link. Planetary tremors are increasing. Whatever you're going to do, Dr. Chen, do it fast. Sarah focused all her will into the crystal network. Instead of fighting the discord, she began to work with it, using principles of wave interference to create new stable patterns. The compound flowing through her system adapted in real time, evolving with each new harmonic she introduced. Impossible, the leader's patterns registered shock. You're not just stabilizing the network, you're teaching it to To change, Sarah completed. To grow, like all living things must. The crystal matrices around them began to pulse with new light. Where there had been rigid structures, now they were flowing, dynamic patterns. The compound had become a bridge not just between species, but between different states of existence. Through their shared consciousness, Sarah felt the moment when everything changed. The foundation crystals didn't just stabilize, they transformed. The entire network shifted into a new state of dynamic equilibrium, one that could adapt to change while maintaining essential stability. Sarah opened her eyes to find herself back in the chamber, supported by Echo as her consciousness returned to normal scale. The walls around them shimmered with new patterns, more complex and beautiful than anything they had seen before. "The readings are stabilizing," Dr. Marcus announced, checking his instruments. "The crystal network, it's operating at a completely new level of complexity." The leader's exoskeleton pulsed with patterns of wonder. "You have given us more than stability, Bridgemaker. You have shown us a new way to exist." Through the compound, Sarah could sense the changes rippling through resonant society. The rigid harmony of the past was giving way to something new, a dynamic balance between order and chaos, tradition and innovation. "Not just you," she smiled, noting how the compound in her system had evolved along with the crystal network. "We've all changed, human and resonant. We've created something entirely new together." Captain Rivera stepped forward, his expression serious. "The question is, what do we do now? This goes way beyond our original mission parameters." The chamber filled with harmonics as resonance young and old added their voices to the discussion. The leader raised its crystalline arms, creating a cascade of light that commanded attention. "We propose a permanent exchange," it announced. "Let us learn from each other. Your compound has shown us that true evolution comes not from absorption, but from cooperation." Sarah looked at her teammates, seeing the same mix of excitement and apprehension she felt. They had come to study an alien world and had ended up transforming it, and themselves, in the process. "I'll need to modify the compound further," she said. "Create versions that allow for different levels of integration, establish safety protocols." Always a scientist, Echo's patterns conveyed amusement, even after touching the consciousness of an entire world. Sarah laughed. "Especially after that, humanity's greatest strength isn't just our adaptability. It's our desire to understand, to improve, to push boundaries while learning from our mistakes." The crystalline walls pulsed with new frequencies, a harmony of human and resonant creation. Above them, through the transparent crystal dome, the twin moons cast their light on a world forever changed by the meeting of two species who had learned that the greatest discoveries come not from conquest or absorption, but from the willing exchange of knowledge and understanding. "So," Sarah addressed the assembled group, her voice carrying the weight of possibility, "shall we begin our first official cultural exchange?" The chamber filled with light and sound, human voices and crystalline harmonics blending into something new, something that would echo across the stars as a testament to what could be achieved when different species chose to grow together rather than apart. End.